Afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, September 3rd meeting of the Watershed Committee. Members of the committee are here this evening as well as staff members. So first order of business is call to order. We're going to jump right into our committee discussions. So our first item is to talk about the Allen's Creek Restoration Project. So this has been a project that's been going on, I've been involved at least since 2012. So this was an area we've identified it has a lot of erosion in town, has had some hill slides in the past. So we started doing a study back in 2012 to look at the creek, look at the needs of it. And then in 2016, we actually had a major hillslide in there, which kind of started the impetus for the town board to allocate money to it, as well as pursue the permits needed through the DEC and the Army Corps for the actual permitting for the project. So that took us several years to get that permitting in order, to get that together. Finally, as of a year and a half ago, we'd gotten the permits as needed. Put that out to bid in 2023, late in the season. Didn't get any bids from contractors in late 2023, so we again bid it in the fall, or excuse me, spring of 2023. We bid it again in the fall of 2023, and then had several bidders. And then JB Excavating was the low bidder at that time, and has been our contractor. So they started in June of this year. Mike's kind of pulled up on the screen, showing an aerial photo of the area, and he's kind of highlighting, where that area started in the back. So many thanks to the new owners. Used to be Linden Tech, used to be the property for Paychecks. So actually coming off of Linden Avenue has been our main access in. So while this project is behind Burroughs Hills and Sherwood, the back of Linden Tech has been our main access into this project. And I think this will be a main spot we'll go on our tour on the 14th to take a look at. But many thanks to that group for allowing us in. They've been great to work with. They've now is a Corning facility, but the owners are actually out of Georgia, but they've been great to work with, allowed us in. So where Mike's highlighting on the screen is actually our access point down to the creek. So off the end of that back parking lot, as we have our access in, and they built a road down in, so the grade kind of falls down to the creek from there. So they've built an access road all the way down in, and then have had their staging area kind of in that lower area right off the creek, and then where the pumps are in the creek, and then everything from there goes east. So to the west of that is Brighton, Corbett's Glen Park, to your west to kind of orient you. So we're just downstream from the town line, and then the project goes to the east, not quite all the way over to Allen's Creek Valley Homeowners Association. So Mike's got a few photos. We'll kind of click through the photos just to kind of show you. And we've got historical photos. So this is looking into the property behind Corning. So this is the access road they built down in. The metal box on the right is the pump. So the pump that sits in the creek, and then that big black plastic pipe is the pipe that they're using to bypass pump the water from the creek down past the project. So he's actually built a road, all DEC permitted, in the creek and using the creek channel as the roadway. So we're staying out of people's yards. He has a bypass channel so you can see kind of the road in there. And then you can see there is a bypass channel, so if we do get heavy rains, it can overflow and kind of run on the side of the road in there. So it's kind of been a really neat project to kind of watch how they do it and how they facilitate it, but have the pumps down, keeps the creek as dry as can be. But as we've all seen and experienced this summer, we've had hurricanes, we've had heavy rains. It's been a tough summer to have some of these rain events, so he's kind of had to stop and start a little bit. So I think it's gone a little slower than he's anticipated, but we're still well within our time frame. So we can be in the creek up until October 1st is when he can permitted to be in the creek. He's got to be out of the creek and then can continue to do outside of creek final restoration with that. So Mike can kind of, if you want to slowly kind of click through some of the pictures, and I say we're going to go out there and tour it, but I thought it was good to kind of show some progress photos of kind of what it's been along the way. But you can see that black pipe is pumping the creek around that to keep the muddy water and silt from going downstream. And then as he's bringing in rocks, there's trees to clear on the side. So a lot of it going in first was kind of clearing the trees, dead trees overhanging, other things. There's areas of the channel that had to be widened. So we had some concrete walls. If you remember in the past, there were some concrete walls in there. Again, here shows the pump, so it's kind of been a permanent fixture in one of the residents' backyard, and many thanks to them. The neighbors have been very good to work with us, and obviously we're impacting their backyard and their summer. And then this kind of shows they built a kind of a bridge over the creek, and then where the road portion looks like it actually was creek, and then the bypass channel is on the right. So if in heavy rains, it kind of goes in the bypass channel, but the majority of the time they're working on or from that kind of roadway in the creek area. And this kind of shows this is one of the concrete retaining wall that was down the way. They had to take the wall out. We've worked with that neighbor to remove the wall. And what we're on, you can see it was a shuffleboard court. So we've had to negotiate with them. We've got to restore a bit of a concrete pad back for them. And then we've taken out a fair number of trees, and that'll be a conversation with the town board at the end. Is this project has just been about the erosion and maintaining and reestablishing the erosion portion of it. So we're going to have to go back to the board and talk about restoration of trees. So we've told people we do a one-to-one restoration of the trees they've lost, but we didn't know until they got into the project of how many trees had to come down once the contractor got in. So Amy's been our day-to-day person down on site, as well as tabulating how many trees. So we'll go back and work with our landscape consultant to recommend species that kind of work in that area, native species, and then work with the neighbors, go, okay, you get 2 trees back, or you get whatever. So we're not going to re-landscape everybody's backyard, but at least to establish the trees that we've taken back out. So but you can see they've got big heavy equipment down there. They've got off-road haulers. They've got big excavators. So as we shared with the neighbors from the beginning, we've got to get some pretty big equipment in there to do this and move the size of rocks around. It's worked out well. The rocks we've stockpiled at Rothfuss Park. So for years, as every project we do, DPW digs up anything underground, we find rocks. So we've been stockpiling them over at Rothfuss Park. So we had a boneyard, or basically a rock yard with these rocks set aside, and then we've had those set there for that. And then once this project happened, we saved a huge cost to the town of having those rocks on hand, and then they're native, they're local. And then the contractor just goes over there, loads up, picks out of the pile of which ones he needs, the sizes. So we've had an assortment of sizes, puts them in his truck, hauls them down there, and then has been using them in the creek and then for the stuff on the side. So he said to do other mud sills with wood, and I don't know if we've got pictures of those. We can show those as go in. Rock veins in there and revetments on the side to, that creates a little splash pool. Amy, if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So this, like you were just saying, this is a good example of a cross vein. I know the left-hand portion of this image, eventually this is just temporary, but he'll grade that out so that it's not just a pool, it continues down the stream, but this is a good example of a cross vein. And the previous picture showed him also putting in a cross vein at the upstream end of the project.
So these are areas to consolidate the flow back to the middle. So as the stream comes down in a low flow situation, it would kind of focus the water in the middle so it doesn't get so spread out. As we've looked before, you've got some of the yards that keeps eating up in the yard, and it was depositing sediment in the middle, creating a delta, and then it was a very wide, flat creek, which doesn't give area for the fish. So the DEC is very happy. We're creating habitat between the mud sills, basically creates an elevated platform, and then there's water can get underneath the elevated platform, and then people get their yard back on top, but it creates space for the fish that can hide underneath, and then as well as the cross veins, concentrate that flow back to the middle so it's not eroding the sides and flows in there. So we've been using natural methods, no concrete, it's just all been rock, logs, root wads and stuff as part of that. So
kind of in the middle of this photo, down the hill from the gazebo or whatever you want to call that you can see is a mud sill, and there'll be a couple more close-up pictures of that, but that's just what Mark was explaining, is the mud sill that provides fish habitat and stability and support to the bank too. Yeah, that's the same mud sill close-up picture.
So there's actually, it's elevated, so they push planks back into the ground and then put posts to kind of hold it up, so it's almost an elevated deck. And then there's habitat underneath that, so the fish kind of have a spot to be under that, and then we can reestablish lawn or property above that people have lost, but then it creates a habitat space for the fish that they can hide underneath that area, and then also kind of create a deeper pool. Again, you can kind of see the black pipe. So he's pumped the whole way, so almost half a mile down the way. He's got the pump on the one end, and then as the flows go up and down, he can adjust that. So most days it's just on an idle. It kind of idles along, it gets pumping, and based on the grade, once he builds up enough head, it kind of runs by gravity on the way out. So through most people's backyards, you just kind of have a pump, so it's actually bypassing the flow of the water through their backyard. Meanwhile, using the actual creek as a roadway to do the project, haul rocks back and forth, pull material in and out. We're digging deeper sediment pits, so it's creating sediment from that. So we've had to pull some of the sediment out. And again, the Corning group has been very kind in letting us put that material up on the upper area, and then we're going to kind of create a little picnic area for their employees. They've never had a spot before that they can actually sit out and look at the creek from up above. And so he was going to place some rocks at the end, and they can sit out there and have a staff meeting if they want, or have lunch, but at least it's kind of created a nice little area for them. They can sit and overlook the creek and look down. And so I think just some more photos, again, shows a rock vein and then some of the deeper pool areas that come through. So the water would come from your right side of the screen, so just make sure the water would flow over that, and then it kind of pushes it back to the middle. So the water comes in, it holds that edge. So the rocks on the front edge kind of hold the bottom of the creek so it doesn't keep scouring deeper. So he's buried those pretty deep in. You're just seeing the tops of those. So that holds it so you don't keep eroding the creek bottom, and holds it in elevation, and then gives you a little bit of a splash pool, for habitat for fish and frogs and whatever else in the creek. And there's another good picture of a mud sill that creates those head logs, and then those logs that go back into the creek there, and then the grade can then come down to the edge of those mud sills. So you'll never see the logs underneath. They'll be actually underwater underneath. And I asked him the other day how long they would last, and he said, well, because I put some in 30, 40 years ago, and they're still there and fine. So once the log is saturated underwater, he said it doesn't rot, it just kind of stays. So, and then some more mud sill pictures. So this is the lawn side of the residence. So eventually that'll all be covered up, and then the rocks, dirt on the left is what will actually be turned back into a creek area.
This is just the upstream section again. We're looking at the slope that he's graded, and then all of those big boulders that are at the bottom right now are being staged in order to get ready to install for a revetment. So up at that upstream end and at many portions along the project, there'll be big boulder revetments to help stabilize the banks as well.
Mark, how long would you anticipate this project will go on? When will it be finished?
We're hoping middle of October, at least this piece would be done. So he plans on being done in the next few weeks, is his plan. Obviously, it's been delayed a little bit just from the rains and everything. He'd planned on being done at the end of August. But then, with the rainstorms and everything else, he's got to stop for a few days, let the water go down, come back to it. So he has to be out of the creek by October 1st, so that's our hard, fast date to be done in the creek portion, but then he can do lawns, so he's got to go back and do some topsoil and seed and finish up in people's lawns areas. And then we've got to go back before the board to talk about final landscaping, tree restorations. That'll be probably late October, November to plant trees for those residents.
Just two kind of quick follow-ups to that. One is kind of how long, given these more extraordinary rain events that we've been having, how long would you say until something else might need to be modified there? I mean, given what we can expect over time, nothing really wild, but what we just expect, given that we now have these heavier storms, how long do you think this job will hopefully hold up before some other dredging or something has to be done?
I'm hopeful it is a good 20, 30 years. I don't think we should have to go back in. This has mostly been an erosion issue, but all these yards are in a floodplain, so we're not altering the floodplain, good or bad. So the floodplain will remain. So if we do get heavy rainstorms, we remind the neighbors their backyard is a floodplain, almost up to the back of most of the houses. So if we get a 100-year storm, it's going to be a major flow through there. But hopefully with the revetments and hopefully with the rock kind of bracing those hillsides, that'll at least keep the hills from being undercut, which we were seeing before, and seeing the erosion of, it's all sand hills as it goes up to the manufactured homes up above. So I'm hopeful it outlasts my lifetime, that, you know, we never have to go back there, but, I mean, even beyond, but I mean, I would expect at least 30 years out of it, if hopefully much longer. The contractors he's put them in 30, 40 years ago, and, you know, seen the features still, you know, still working, so.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah. If we got a few more pictures, Mike, or that's it? Okay. Yeah, so that kind of clicks through the pictures, so, you know, we can bring those progress photos. Our PCTV crew has been out there documenting as we go along. They did a great job. They documented it actually as a 3D image all the way through, so they took shots before it was done, and I'll ask them again, and they're listening now as I'm asking them on TV, that they go back and document it at the end, but I think it'll show, you know, hopefully a great improvement over what happened, and kind of show the, you know, the loss that people had, and then, you know, the gain. Obviously, it's been an impact on people and their landscaping in the back, but hopefully we're trading short-term landscaping impacts with long-term stability of the stream and long-term, you know, betterment, that we don't have more hill slides or people aren't losing yard area. So some areas we had to widen the creek a little bit. It got channeled down way back in I think the 70s. Some concrete walls got put up and really concentrated the flow. Once that got concentrated, it just didn't have anywhere to go. So the more stormy you got, the faster the water went. There was no engagement of the floodplain. So this is bringing the floodplain back into it. So to your original question, or earlier question, it should make us better in higher flow events, that we're not getting the erosion or seeing the velocity that we have. But also even the low flow events, we've now created some deep pool areas and have, you know, spots for the fish. So the DEC's, you know, very happy that we're, you know, creating better habitat for the fish, and trout runs, salmon runs. And that's why we've got to get out by October 1st, because those will start whether we're ready or not. So I don't know if any further questions on this, but I say this has been a big project that's been many years coming. This has kind of been our major drainage project for the summer, has been, you know, the focus on this. Nothing else? Okay. You know, that being said, I say we are working on some stream projects, but we've had a lot of overhaul in DPW, so with some changes of administration, as well as moving ahead with our DPW facility, many other projects. So we've basically been working on the Salt Road, Gloria Drive portion, and that's kind of been an on again, off again, as we've had, you know, staffing to do that. So we haven't made as much headway in other stream cleanings as we have in the past, but those can contribute through the fall and through the winter. You know, along with our other projects, we've kind of had just one major Salt Road, Gloria Drive, so it's kind of out on the southeast corner of town, so we don't have as much update on that, but we've been doing a lot of other paving projects and brush drop-off areas, and lots of other activities for the DPW this summer that they've got into with that. So we'll look, if we need to extend permits, we'll extend permits as needed for the project we've already gotten approved, and then, you know, work on those through the fall and winter. And if we've had as mild of winters as we've had in the past, we can continue going on through with that. Any other updates, Bob, you want to provide on stream cleaning?
No, we've got we're pretty close on the Gloria Drive Salt Road one. We're to the point now we got brush that we have to get out of there before we can go any further. So that's our holdup, is dealing with brush. So now we got the brush site set. So we're hoping another couple weeks here we can have the brush site set where we can start doing that, and then we can continue on with that one and get that one buckled up before too late here in the fall, hopefully before Halloween.
Okay.
We have that all taken care of. So, but with everything going on, moving everything to DPW 3 times and whatnot, and that was all taking priority because they got set hard dates that they had to start on, and they had to have stuff moved out so they could do their job. So we'll get on to them.
Okay. Any other questions on stream cleanings? No? So we've got our annual field trip, we call it. Typically we do that in June. This year we pushed it to September, so Saturday, September 14th. Our committee will be going out and doing a tour. I thought the major event walk would be Allen's Creek, since that was the major event, but I don't know if anybody had any other thoughts, but typically we'll meet at the community center and, head out from there, go over and look at the project. We'll let the neighbors know. We can walk the backyards and see, it won't be complete, but you can kind of see some areas. Hopefully by then, some areas will be fairly complete. And then, so he's kind of started at the top end, built the road, built the pipe, worked all the way down, built the features, and then it'll almost work the back, start cleaning the material back out of the stream and start reestablishing it back up. So we can kind of see that progress if we park at the top end and, look at Linden Tech and, see the improvements that were done there and the access that was created on their end. And then either we can walk the stream channel, bring your muck boots, gets a little wet and a little muddy at times, and then we could either leapfrog over to the other side and then, walk the backyards with the neighbors and, see it from the other side as well. So unless anybody else had anything, I figured that would take us our usual hour, 2-hour kind of tour and walk through, unless there was something else you guys wanted to see. No?
I think so.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Do we have like a drone video event about do you guys do that at all?
I mean, they've got like I say, you can 3D virtually tour the creek ahead of time. So that's been done, and they've been taking progress photos, and we've taken progress photos. These were just a few snapshots. We can share those. And then once this is done, I plan on having, hopefully they can fly that again, do the drone so you can see a before and after, shots, but they kind of did 3D imaging at each spot. You can kind of go down the creek and then 360 view of, what it looked like ahead of time and what it looks like afterwards. So hopefully once we're done, PCTV will oblige us to do that once again and, kind of document the whole change.
Go back in a couple of years and do it.
And then go back in a few years and see as the vegetation's come back and, they've got to do some seed plantings on the hillsides, do some live stakes. So that is all part of the project, the restoration for the erosion portion, but, individual trees, we just didn't know how many had to come down, and depending on which contractor got it, we had kind of bid it out as worst case that we would build that haul road in their backyards. So if the stream flows were such that we couldn't use the creek, basically we had to build a road in their backyard, which would have clear cut everything out the backyards. Thankfully, we got the contractor who's experienced as he is. He's very comfortable working in the creek, working in the waters. He said, nope, I can do it right from the stream. So we've had to take some trees down the way, but it's saved immense of, originally we were just going to build a haul road through people's backyards and being running those same trucks and the same excavators. So we kind of, I'll say, sold it to the neighbors as worst case, but that's, if and whoever we got as a contractor, that was a possibility. We'd have to use the creek, just leave it as the creek and work from the side and then work from a haul road. But thankfully this contractor is very experienced and was able to use the creek, bypass flows, and been very comfortable with that. So it's minimized the impact that could have been. I'm sure it may be much more than the neighbors ever thought or wished or wanted, but they've been very willing to work with us all along and been great partners in doing all this. So hopefully we can end up with a good project and everybody's happy. But, okay, so that was my item, was just to talk about our field trip and see if there's anything else we wanted to look at. But it sounds to me that seems like our major project and a good spot to tour. Okay. As we're already looking ahead at 2025, so every year we talk about this in the fall. Every year it seems to move up a little sooner for when we got to get our DEC permits and everything else. So Mike's got a list of the current ponds that we treat and what we treat them for. So we have a kind of a minimum treatment level, as everybody always calls this. We don't do algicide. We don't do, it says algicide. We don't do algae treatments. We're basically treating lily pad growth, excessive, overgrowth of stuff that's at these properties. So we've done tollwood for a number of years. So those are the two ponds across from the community center. So we call those the tollwood ponds. So on Bear Road, you come out, tollwood north and south. As you've seen, we've continued to have excessive vegetative growth on those. We've done some muck-away pucks in there in the past. And then trying to treat the cattails, and you can see the cattails kind of keep taking that pond over. So it's always a balance. Cattails are good, and they absorb stuff, and it's good to have them around the outside. But when they take over and block the control structure, that's when it becomes an issue for us. It's now taking away the functionality of the pond and how it flows and how it handles flood storage. So we rely on ATIP as our contractor, work with them to establish when it's needed, when it's not needed. So every year it may vary a little bit, but we always come back and confirm with this group is this group supportive of moving ahead with these ponds as we've continued to do? And then we go back to the town board. And I think this year we actually had a 3-year contract. So I think the board last approved it to go through 24, 25, and 26, I think is our,
Yeah, this would definitely, well,
or 23, 24,
I
and
think this might
25
be
or something.
if we go and treat next year, that would be the last year. We'll have to get a new,
Okay, so I think we had
contract.
23, 24, and 25 for that. So then we treat Glenbrook Pond, so that we've had, again, we'd use muck-away pucks in there. So the organic sediment that settles in the bottom, one year, I don't know if anybody was around at that time, we actually got in there and tried dredging that out. Like, obviously, got into hundreds of thousands of dollars in wintertime, and, lots of material to come out of there. So we've been trying to use these, actually use bacteria in these little, either looks like dog kibble or looks like a hockey puck. And you can throw those out there. They're non-toxic, but it basically introduced the bacteria that like to eat the muck or the organic materials at the bottom of the pond. So if we can put those in there, and that eats the organic material, and hopefully that extends the life cycle of that pond a few more years before we have to get back in and dredge it out. So every once in a while, the pond gets so overgrown, so much sediment in it, it just fills up. You lose the storage capacity, use the treatment capacity. We've got to get in and dredge it. If obviously we can extend that longer, it not only saves cost, but permitting, and permitting has become, I've said this before, much more difficult with DEC. So we're working with the DEC on it. We've got half of DEC, our stormwater regulation says we have to maintain our ponds. We've got to inspect them every 3 years, which we actually go out and inspect them manually. So every year we go out, we've got some DPW crews go out, they inspect the ponds, look at them, see if there's any issues with them, any treatment needed, and then through the winter, when the leaf's off, it's a good time to get in, trim brush back. If we're not plowing roads, the guys are out cleaning brush out of these ponds or doing, maintenance to the outfall structures. But now we've got the other half of DEC, which anytime they now deem it a wetland, we've got to get permits to clean a pond that was put in for subdivision. So it was a man-made pond. It was put in as a stormwater pond to treat a neighborhood, and then they, somewhere along the way, deem it a wetland. And now we've got to get permits to clean and maintain the pond that we're required to maintain by DEC. So we're getting caught in a little bit of a cycle, and I think other towns are see that as well. But that's going to be a challenge going forward, is how do we maintain the infrastructure that we put in and are required to maintain when, we've got one pond, Pennicott Pond. Thank you, Mike's pulling it up. So this is a pond. I don't know if it's kind of tucked in behind houses. It's on town property. It does abut some wetland areas to the north, but when the pond was put in, it was not deemed wetland. So that's the Irene Gosson Preserve further to the north. But our piece is on town land. It was put in back in the 80s. The pond was established. They've now deemed it wetland. So we went in and we're going to clean the pond out, do our regular maintenance. They said, nope, you've got to get a wetland delineation. Got the wetland delineation. Of course, we've got to pay for that. We had to do applications for it. And then it's full of Phragmites. So we want to dredge the pond out. Phragmites are deemed an invasive species. So if we dig them up and take them off, the landfill looks at them as basically garbage. So we've got to pay garbage tipping rates. So that's tens of thousands of dollars to haul those over. So now we're looking to get a permit to treat the Phragmites, kill the Phragmites, and then dredge it out of there. So we're now in year 2. They're saying maybe we'll get the permit for the Phragmites treatment in year 3. And we've spent $20,000 already on paying a consultant to make the applications and do the wetland delineation for us. So this is one pond. We've got 80-some that are ours.
yeah.
And there's like 186 in town overall, and I think 80-some that are the towns. So you can just see the numbers start to add up if it takes this much time and effort to maintain something that was put in and cost. Hopefully we can figure out a streamlined process, and we're not the only community, so it's every community across New York State that's kind of dealing with this, but hopefully we can find some more streamlined process in working with the DEC to meet our requirements that we're required to do, but not at such cost and effort to get this done. So again, this pond just kind of sits. We kind of started the project, got halfway through it, and they said, nope, you need a permit for it. So it's just kind of sat, and the neighbors keep asking, what are you doing? And we're still trying to work through the permitting process with DEC for it.
Or can you kind of remind some of us who may have forgotten or didn't know that much in the first place about the problem, the specific problem with the Phragmites, why they are so challenging?
Yeah, I mean, it's an invasive species, and I don't know where it started, but is growing up, you always just see cattails on the side of the road or cattails in ponds, so the more the reed-like with the cattail at the top. These Phragmites have come in and they look more of a feathery top to them. They're a great filter, and I think that's why someone brought them in. They do a great job of filtering out nutrients, but they create such a thick thatch at the bottom, and then they grow on top of that every year, and they just choke out every other plant within that area. So unfortunately, it just becomes a monoculture of Phragmites. There's no other. We have cattails, and you've got other different wetland species, and they all kind of have worked well in the past, and that's a well-operating wetland or well-operating pond. The Phragmites just come in now, and they just choke everything else out, so there's nothing else but them. And then they just create such a root ball system that they grow on top of each other each year. It just kind of keeps reducing the capacity of the ponds, the streams. And then once you dig them out, if you don't get all of them, they're a rhizome, so you don't get all the roots of them, then they grow back even more ferocious than they did before. So it's become a universal problem for a lot of areas, a lot of communities. And for that reason, I say once we dig them out, we take them to the landfill. The landfill has to bury them down like garbage. They can't just put them on top. Other times we dig out a pond, we take the muck out. They'll use that as cover material over the garbage. So they'll take that either for free or for a very reduced rate. When we dig out the Phragmites, they look at that as, hey, that's something I still need to bury, and then I need to put something else on top of that. So they charge us a tipping rate or a tipping fee for that. So we did a small piece when we did the stream coming past the YMCA up to Atlantic Avenue, and our guys dug them out, stacked them on the side, let them dry out, so we're not paying for water weight because they come out and they're wet and sloppy, so you're paying for all that cost. So, Bob, you can chime in anytime. But they stacked them on the side, let them dry for weeks or months, and at least to kind of dry out that material mass and then haul that off, and it still cost us $30,000, $20,000. I mean, it was just as a little bit of stream to take it to the landfill. So looking at an entire pond and then multiplying that by how many, just the staggering cost of permitting costs and, consultant costs and, the Phragmites and everything else. It's a struggle to maintain the ponds and keep them functioning, but also, obviously maintain our costs and work within budget. So I don't know if that answered your question about the Phragmites, but that's
No, it does. And
my understanding.
The thousands of people in our listening audience, I'm sure, it's good it's kind of good to share that information that we may have notes on, but that other people may think, well, why is that such a big deal? Why don't you just dig them up and throw them away?
Yeah, that's the issue. And then again, if you just mow them down, they seem to come back more. And same with the Japanese knotweed. That's another one that we're fighting. That one's another that it takes over and becomes a monoculture. And unless you get down to the roots or kill it off, you can just mow it down and it'll just keep coming back. So you've got to treat it. So we're working with ATIP, our consultant, to have them spray, but you can only spray a certain time of year, and typically it's in the fall. I guess as it's Mike weigh in as it's.
So as the Phragmites are dying off, you're supposed to spray it, and then it takes the herbicide or whatever, and it brings it down into the root system, which then helps kill it, so that when you do tear it out, that in next year it doesn't multiply really.
Dead, so you've got to wait till the fall till it's going into its resting season, and I guess it absorbs the nutrients as well. So we kind of our permit didn't get approved this fall, so that's why we're looking at a 2025. So again, it's not just us delaying, you've got to spray it at the right time of year to actually kill it off so we can, dredge it and haul it out of there. So now we've got another year going by, and we're going to go into fall of 2025 to spray it, and then wait till they die, and then, so it may be into a winter or spring of 2026, dare I say, before we can dredge it and get those materials out of there, so.
They've already reseeded.
Yeah, I mean, that's I say, it's a kind of a endless cycle of trying to keep up and maintain this stuff. So kind of just quickly ran down some of the pond treatments and everything else. They've been the standard ones we've done for a number of years, and they've kind of just been enough to kind of maintain it. Any thoughts, concerns, questions? I say we approve these every year, and then the town board actually last spring, I believe, approved a 3, or I guess it would be back in 2023, approved a 3-year contract. And unfortunately, unfortunately, they're the only bidders we've got on it, and I think the only people that we've had that have, sprayed locally for those. I know we've reached other companies and either don't bid anymore or aren't taking that on. So, to get a 3-year contract with them and lock in a price has been good for us, to at least to kind of lock that in and then, continue with the treatment. So,
Mike, what is the last pond? The
Silverwoods?
If you can
video
scroll up.
images covering it?
our,
Oh.
yeah, thank you.
Silverwoods, okay.
So we've got a Silverwoods north and south. So again, we're just kind of treating the lily pad growth in those to keep that from overgrowing in those areas. And Mike's pulling that up now. So we've got 2 ponds in that area, and that's another one we dredged a number of years ago. And again, trying to kind of keep that maintained. So again, the cost of dredging a pond is pretty large, and typically takes our drainage budget for an entire year to do something to that effect. Where if we can keep these ponds kind of in check along the way, we've been using the drainage fund to clean streams around town and keep other things maintained.
And the muck pucks are definitely, they're working.
I mean, they've just at least kind of kept us at a status quo.
It's really big.
Yeah, so the Parks Department goes out in the springtime, summertime, and, as they're doing other stuff, kind of throws these in, and, they're non-toxic. There's no, issue, impact on the fish or animals around it, but it's definitely kind of helped kind of keep us at a status quo, so we're not going out and having to, re-dredge these all the time and, the sediment in that. And then as well as, working with local farmers and working with contracts and developments. That's why we're out inspecting our sites, because you're not getting, hopefully, the runoff that goes into the stream, which then when it hits a pond, that's when it settles out. So as the water gets still, it no longer carries the sediment, no longer carries the rocks, it drops it in the pond, and that's why you see the excessive buildup in the pond. And then we also work with the neighbors to, part of the education efforts, and as we get down to the MS4 permit, we'll talk more about educating people that live around ponds of what it is like to live around a pond and the expectations, as well as trying to reduce fertilizers. And people call us and say our pond is green and it's over, grown with vegetation. Most often it's you and your neighbors are over fertilizing in the neighborhood. You fertilize, and then we get a heavy rain, it runs down the storm sewer, and people think it goes off to a magical treatment plant. It treats the water and goes off and get clean. Your sanitary, when you flush the toilet, does. That goes to a treatment plant, gets treated. Your stormwater pond most likely runs down, or the stormwater runs down the end of your street and goes into the creek, or it goes into a pond, and then the algae blooms in the pond explode because everybody's over fertilized their lawn. And while it's good for your grass, it's also good for algae, and it's good for the plants in the pond, and they become overgrown and overvegetated. So that's some of our efforts in the MS4 stuff we'll talk about in a little bit. So if everybody's good with the pond treatment stuff, we'll continue to move on with that. One new item that's popped up this year, and this is kind of just an informational item for the committee, is the Willow Pond Sulfur Spring. So this is, and Mike's pulling up a map of it, so down in the Willow Pond area, so the southeast corner, south central portion of the town, is the Willow Pond neighborhood. He's pulling up the letters. We've had concerns from neighbors that have had a sulfur smell in their neighborhood. So this year it seemed to be more than usual. People contacted us and thought that there was either a gas main break or something was rotting or something was going on. So we called the DEC, we called the health department, we called Soil and Water, we talked to Parrington, and kind of went through and did a lot of exploratory stuff. And once we kind of found out what was going on, we sent a letter out to the neighbors surrounding it, let them know it's naturally occurring. And we found out, actually, this has been documented back into the 1800s. So back into the 1800s, they've documented a natural occurring sulfur spring in this area, and Mike's kind of highlighted on the map. So as you zoom in, If you go out there, you can see it looks almost whitish. So there's water you can see bubbling up out of the ground, and at times, and it seems to go with the heavy rains. So as we've had stronger rains this year, it pushes water up from the groundwater, and it bubbles up. It brings this sulfur with it. So, and then the whitish stuff is actually the bacteria that's eating the sulfur. So we had the water tested. People said, well, is it toxic? Is it going to, impact or kill my dog? Is it, an impact to the area through the pond? And it was tested. It tested as fresh water. And then, so we had the health department do samples. We talked to the drilling people from DEC. We actually got into the drill for gas and everything else. And they said, oh, yeah, we've seen these in other locations. But, yeah, that's the bacteria eating the sulfur that makes it the white color. But he looked at it and said there's frogs there. There's new vegetative growths. You can see cattails growing. And they said amphibians are the first animal that would be impacted. So you would not see frogs if it was toxic or acidic in any way. So they said they see frogs there. That means it's a healthy environment. You can see cattail growth. You could see new tree growth. So unfortunately, there's still a smell at times. So it seems to cycle. The phone calls increase as we get a heavy rain. So after, the hurricane came through, extra amount of water, groundwater surges, and then the days following, it seems to push water up. So I know people have said, make it go away. I don't want this. I get it and I understand it, but if it's been there since the 1800s, I don't think it's going to be here longer than we are. And then people say, well, drain it and make it go away. And we got, concerns, or at least the drilling people at DEC said, be careful if you try to drain it. Right now it's filtering through the water. If you take the water away, it may just be an open air release of sulfur into the air or something else. So it could be worse. So we've kind of shared that with the neighbors. So just wanted to obviously brief this committee. If you hear, we've kept the town board briefed saying this is what's going on. Our communications team went door to door, dropped leaflets off, dropped stuff off to the neighbors to educate them about that. Again, some people said, great, but I don't want it to smell like sulfur at my house. It impacts, my kids can't have parties and their friends don't want to come over and it smells. And I feel for them, but I don't know what can do or what we can do when it's naturally occurring. Most people were happy just to hear it's not toxic, happy to hear it wasn't a gas main break, it wasn't, buried garbage from years ago that's, finally decomposing or something. So, again, this was just kind of an informational item for the group here, just to share this is what's going on, this is what has happened this year. We contacted Parrington, they were aware of it, we sent them our letter, and they shared it with some of their residents, so it kind of is what it is, but just wanted to make sure this group was aware. And again, if there's thousands watching at home, maybe we've educated one more person at home that's watching about the sulfur spring and what it is that's out there and what's happening with it. So, any other questions on Sulfur Springs? No? Do have some updates on the Stormwater Coalition MS4 update permit. So a new permit was issued this year. So that is our regulations for how DEC basically dubbed us to be in charge of what we do inspections of construction sites. There's 6 minimum control measures going through it. We've got to do education. We've got to do outfall inspections, pond inspections, construction site inspections, maintenance of our own DPW facilities. So there's a number of things, and that's what we got audited for a number of years ago. So a new permit came out, and that raised the bar even higher. So we had to do updates by July 3rd. So we had to issue a new NOI, so notice of intent that we basically are now covered under this new Speedies permit. We got that in. We've got to do some other stuff on our end, and most of these things, because there's basically through a 5-year period, there's ever escalating things that we've got to do over the 5-year period. The 6-month ones are ones that you pretty much should have had done. So that's why that was 6 months. So a stormwater coordinator, this is our group right here. Our engineering department is the coordinator. We had to put in an organizational chart. So we had to clean up a little bit of, we didn't think we had a full organizational chart on the website, but we have to have spots. And Mike's scrolling through, and I can share this with the group if you want to, read further. But our staffing plan, who's covering it, who's handling it. We're unlike a lot of towns, we have this watershed committee, so we run a lot of stuff through you guys. We handle the day-to-day stuff, but not many communities have a watershed committee. So again, this is a huge part of our education efforts, talking about it on TV, providing the public an opportunity to come out and talk about it. So that goes towards education, public involvement, participation. We scored very highly above a lot of other communities because we have this opportunity that people can come here and address the committee or send stuff in, or just, having it discussed about it in a public forum. We've got to do updates to illicit discharge. So on our website, we've made it more prominent where people can go in if they see somebody illegally dumping or see something that doesn't look right, alert us. And then we've got certain checklists of timeframes we've got to go in and look at those and remedy it if it's a cross connection of sanitary sewer, or if somebody's illegally dumping, contact the DEC, have the spills crew out. Management of our herbicides and fertilizers, maintaining our own fleet, and then, Mike, if you keep scrolling, I think there was a few more items, our local contact, and then we've got to update our swamp plan, as we call it. So that's our, how do we handle our stormwater? So between Mike, Amy, and I, we handle most of it day to day. If all three of us get in a car accident, how we need to have a book on hand that somebody can come in tomorrow, pick that up, and then carry that forward. So that's our stormwater management plan, is we've got a book on the shelf that says thou shalt do this, this, and this, so that somebody else can pick that up and carry that forward. So that's something that DEC requires from them or from us. And then we've got to talk about how we're going to handle some stormwater impairment areas. So we're going to work with a stormwater coalition on those. So that was all items that we at least have to show that we're starting by 6 months. We've had to do some updates to our stormwater mapping. Again, we're, I think, immensely ahead of most other communities on our online mapping stuff that's available. I think we had to tweak a few little things on that, so we've updated our online viewers if anybody wants to look at that. And then Mike's pulling up, we have to enhance our enforcement plan. So we had to come up with what items, and if we see illegal things happening, how do we, again, have documented processes of how those are handled and done through the town. So we've completed all that stuff. We did meet our July 3rd deadline. And then now by October 1st, I believe we've got to send in a report basically saying we did that, and then acknowledge that to the DEC. So with all that, each year, as I said, there's a 5-year kind of rollout of things we've got to get done. So escalating stuff, and then Mike's pulling up the interim progress report. So there's a sample report that we've got to fill out, so that Andy Sansone is the head of the County Stormwater Coalition, so he's kind of our head of that coalition group. So they've kind of populated some of that already, and then we've got to fill out saying, yes, we've completed these, here's where they are, here's what's done, and then send that into the DEC so they can kind of verify that. One of the items, and Donna, did you have something?
I'm just wondering if this is available on the town website.
I don't know if it is as of yet. If it's not, we can make it up and available, and once we do our report, we'll make that available. So each year and this year we did not have to do an annual report because this new permit came out. It superseded doing an annual report this year. But every other year by June, we've got to do an annual report. We put that on our website. I think it's got to be up minimum 30 days. We typically leave it up until the next report is issued and then come back around. So this year, in lieu of that, because of all these new requirements, we didn't have to do an annual report this year, so you won't find that online. But we can make this update available, and then every year now, our calendar year used to run March 8th through March 9th of every year. It was like an odd day. Thankfully, it ends at the calendar year this year, so they've righted that. So now our calendar year ends December 31st for this, and then we've got to issue our annual report, I think, by April 15th. I think matches up more with tax day of, it gives us a few months to compile all our materials and issue that. But yeah, we can make this available for
Great.
the public
Thank
on the website. I think what else I was gonna, I was just gonna give a shout out to the town board and ARPA funds. So one of the requirements that's coming up, and in 5 years, we've got to map all of our storm sewer system. Right now, we basically have it in our system. It's a pretty picture. So some is as built. As developments are done, they give us the CAD file. We upload it into our GIS. We have it. Older subdivisions is just taken off of old maps, the original design. We've kind of overlaid it, drawn it in. So I say it's a pretty picture of what we have. But we're required in the next 5 years to actually have a survey grade mapped. So we've got to hire a surveyor to go out there, catch the rim and the invert, size of pipe, flow direction, all of that stuff, which long-term, obviously is great to have, but will also help us to do capacity analysis, or as we're adding new subdivisions in, we can do a study of how much flow data we've got downstream. So the town board, through ARPA funds, just allocated money towards this effort. This is something I put in our budget next year, knowing, and I'm going to say I'm going to put it in my budget every year over 5 years, slow bites at the apple to kind of get that done. They allocated a chunk of money so we can get started on this. So we're going to map actually the storm and the sanitary. So while we're out there and the surveyor's out there, they might as well pick up both. They're right next to each other. Typically, storm is next to the sanitary, pick up both. And again, we can do then capacity studies on the sanitary sewer as we continue to build out. Do we have enough capacity in the lines to handle that? And they also can do a conditions assessment. So as they're pulling the manhole covers, look down in, is the pipe corroded? Is the manhole in bad shape? And then hopefully we can plan in the future. They've also allocated ARPA funds towards slip lining of sewers. So as we're seeing older pipes, we just had a sewer or a storm crossover on Panorama Trail that rusted through and broke a few weeks ago, and had to do an emergency repair on that. So as we get more eyes on the infrastructure and hopefully can repair them before they collapse, or slip line as needed. So many thanks to the town board for allocating funds to that, but that gets us further along on our goal of within 5 years. But so as I say, Mike just pulled up, so this is across the street from the town hall. You got the green lines that shows catch basin, it shows manhole. If Mike zooms in on those catch basins right there, those ones are actually pretty good. They're right on. So we probably got that through an as-built from the developer, but other ones you zoom in and you can see the aerial doesn't quite match where the catch basins are. So we know they're there, but it's not an exact spot. So as we get survey grade, now we'll have rim and invert, and then if we've got to find it in a snowstorm later on, we'll know exactly where it is. So if it's buried out in a field and you're trying to find a sanitary manhole, right now we may know within 10 feet. They got to find it. Later on, if we've got a survey grade, we can actually go out with a GPS and just say, here's the manhole, and find it. Or if it gets buried in, over a hillside or something, you can go back and locate it. So that's a great effort towards moving us into compliance with these regulations as we move forward. And that's one that, again, many communities are going to struggle with. But we also put in some funding application through a CFA grant. There's opportunities that you can get funding. We'll see how we do. Obviously, all communities have to comply with this, so I would assume a lot of people are going after it. But we'll try our best and see what grant funding we can get for those. So, any questions on stormwater updates? No? Okay. So that kind of falls under the DEC or the New York State EPA kind of all falls under that. Any old business to discuss?
I was not at the last meeting, but I just had a question from the minutes.
Sure.
I see that there was what looks like a lengthy discussion with a resident of 146 Timberline Drive, and it seems like the decision at the end was to have the staff, some staff members, do an on-site meeting with the resident with respect to the outfall structure and a retention pond that he felt was just overflowing. Was that resolved?
We reached out. We have not gotten a response to a date to meet out there. So the offer was made, and they haven't taken us up on that. So this was one of the spots, if you remember, in last year's tour, we went out to Glenbrook Pond and kind of showed that gate to open and close. The gentleman had come in before and asked us to open it and close it and adjust it for every rainstorm and, different times. At that time, our recommendation was not to do that, just to try to time a storm and adjust and gate valves. The committee's response was not to do that. I don't think he understood how kind of the overflow in the gate valve worked, so that was our offer at the last meeting, is we'll go out there and show it to you and show you how it works and functions, and I haven't heard anything back. So the offer still stands. They'll happily go out there, or Bob or anybody else, to kind of show how it works. But their understanding, it's basically a sluice gate that it's got a low flow pipe at the bottom, so it's running low flow through the wintertime, but lets the water down on the pond, and once it's closed, it basically goes up over the top and goes over a bigger, goes into the top of a basin, but it's a much larger flow over the top. they seemed to think that there was a different way we could adjust it to even lower the flow that was before, but it kind of is what it is, and it's our only adjustment that we have. So all the other ponds just function the same, but it just seemed to be a misunderstanding on how it functions. So that was our offer last time, was we'll go out there and show you how it opens and closes, and maybe that would offer a better understanding, but I've not heard back on that offer.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to find out what the outcome was, but thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, the dock was. We went over and stood on the edge of the dock, and it had there's a nut you can put the top on and adjust. Basically, just the gate opens up or the gate closes. When the gate closed, the water fills up higher in the pond and then has to go over a big spillway. But once it's going over the spillway, there is no control at all. We open that typically in the spring and the fall. We open it in the fall. We close it in the spring. So we lower it down in the wintertime. So same as the canal. You have lower water. If somebody fell through the ice, hopefully you're up to your knees. You're not, up to your neck or over your head. So we do it as a safety item. So if we don't encourage kids to go out on the pond, it says no skating or fishing, but people do what they do. And so we do lower it in the wintertime, let the water down. So it's hopefully safer if people are on the pond, similar, again, to the canals. And then in the spring, we close it. The water fills up and then makes it a deeper pond, keeps the vegetation from growing, and looks more aesthetic for the residents. So, any new business to discuss tonight? Okay.
I'll throw one thing out there. I'll be very brief because it's something I've asked about before, so it's sort of old new business. But I think since Linda has been on the committee, I haven't mentioned this. And Mark, it actually goes a little bit to what we just discussed with the MS4 permit, and that's the education piece of it. That I really feel it would be a terrific benefit to our town residents and to our basically town environment if we made a really interesting, fun, maybe interactive sort of presentation to people in the town about what is watershed management? What is it that this committee does? Why do we do it? Why do we have to protect the watershed? How are things sort of connected? To your point, somebody has fertilizer in their street. They think if it falls into the storm drain, to your point, it's magic. Somehow it goes away, and that it doesn't actually cause an algae bloom in Lake Ontario after it goes all through, around Quake Creek. Things like invasive species, as you're talking about, people sometimes plant invasive species. They think it's going to help, mitigate something, or they, for example, as we saw in Allen's Creek in the projects over the years, where people thought they could adjust the flow themselves by moving something in the way or doing something, and sometimes, in fact, it made the problem worse because it sped up the flow of the water. So, and I think we need to also share some of the projects that we do to them. The Allen's Creek project is a great project to show off for this town.
Yep.
So I would be happy to work on that with anybody else who's willing to figure out how to, not just what to include. I would defer mostly to you on that, Mark, but what to include, but how to include it in maybe a way that people can be engaged, whether they're 7 years old or 77 years old. So.
Yeah, and to that, and I can share, there's a lot of materials that the Stormwater Coalition, as a coalition a whole, we pay money into that every year. I sit on the executive committee, and we're there. They've done some videos on that. There is a Stormwater Coalition page. There's an H2O Hero page. We do have comic books about watershed and everything else. So I think Mike's pulling some of that stuff up. So there is some links right on our website to that, so we can look and see what they've got there ready. But that's we've used that group to use their expertise, and there's people that are experts in graphics and utilizing that stuff to put out there. They've done some videos on different things, but it seems like if you're not seeing that, and other people certainly aren't seeing that, so we need to get that out there, more in front of the public, and
they have a great
do a
model
feature
that uses it's a landscape.
Mm-hmm.
little topography and,
You pour the water in it,
Yep,
and
the-
it shows the runoff and how it disperses.
Yeah, we've
where,
had-
and you put sponges in, and so
we've
it's
done
a
that
great
with
learning experience.
the Rochester Museum and Science Center. We've had them in before and done a table when we did like either the tree giveaway or we had a spring cleanup. We've had them in, with that before, so we can bring them back. I say,
We
Mike's
have the
pull.
H2O Hero here for kids,
Yep, we've had H2O
giving
Hero,
away
here's the
stickers.
Stormwater Coalition page, and they say we've got, Stormwater 101, that kind of talks about what is stormwater and how does it work, and talking about pollution, non-point source pollution, what's an illicit discharge, and I know there's YouTube videos we've got out there, I know they've got Facebook ads out there, we've got billboards talking about H2O Hero on 490, I know we've got it at Frontier Field, a billboard up there about H2O Hero. So, yeah, I mean, to your point, more education we can do, the better. How do we get it out there? And, that's something that does fall directly under the MS4 permit, and that's something we've, kind of work with that, county collaborative and have handouts and can join our money together to do that. We've most recently done some updates at the zoo. So we used to have an H2O Hero sign. Now there's some otters they have there. There's other education efforts we're doing through that group. We've worked with the Rochester Museum and Science Department in the past. So any avenues we can to get education out there, the better. So,
Terrific.
Okay. Anybody have anything else to share? Okay. So our next meeting will be October 1st in this room here. And with that, we'll close this meeting at 5:01 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Wes and PCTV.